So welcome, Vicki. So
Thank
exciting
you.
to actually be in person. Like you were just saying to me a minute ago, it's we've been doing these for 2 years via Teams and Zoom.
Yeah,
It's nice to be doing it like face to face
I
in person.
know. For the last 2.5 years, like my only interactions have been with my daughter. And so she's 3. So I feel like it's limited what like my topics of discussion. Now I'm like, just like, oh, Coco Melon. Oh, do you know Disney princesses? And I'm like, so I'm trying to like now thankfully,
Broaden your
broaden these
conversation, yeah.
conversations again.
Well, it's a good conversation around the table to have. And we don't have to talk about Encanto because
Yeah,
I know
no,
you have that
please.
all day long, probably conversation with your daughter. So excited to have you here. Give us, I think we just want to get to know you a little bit. You're been with us it's been 6 months now?
Yeah, like 9 months.
We're getting on 9 months. So
Yeah.
I remember when I interview people, I remember where I interviewed you from. It was summer. It was summertime, and I was outside. I was visiting some family. I was outside in some beautiful mountain grass when I first met you on the phone and talked to you. So, give us some background about Vicki Ferguson and what your role is at Ideas Collide.
Yeah, I'm an Arizona native, born and raised here. I have just been back in the Valley for about the same time my daughter has, how old she is, which is about 3 years, because I spent pretty much all of my 20s in Seattle. And I loved that experience. It definitely shaped me as a person, definitely shaped me as a professional, because, I come from a family of very, sometimes you could say like very typical large Mexican family. Everyone's in your business. Everyone likes to weigh in on what you're doing, whether you've asked for it or not. I also, I'm one of 4 girls. So my dad is very protective, very traditional in the sense that, he has an idea for the kind of life that he envisioned for you. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but, when you're a young woman growing up or just any young person, you obviously, you really want to shape your own journey. And so I knew off the bat at a very early age that I was going to leave Arizona at some point. And so I really, my type A personality really worked toward that. So all the way from, maybe the junior high in high school, I did everything I could to like really build up my extracurricular activities, really network. I was part of the mayor's youth committee. And that was in high school, and I was part of their the committee of that was made up of high school students from around the Valley, and basically, you met up once a week, and you got presented with different initiatives, and you got to weigh in, and whether, of course, the mayor took that or not is another story. But we ended up working on a project that would be like, okay, here's a budget for events. So, is this properly being utilized and so forth? And so we all present on the same thing, but have different sort of viewpoints on that. And I was part of the team that won, so that was really exciting. But that really helped me even see too of like, okay, I kind of like this like strategic look on life. Because initially at that point, I wanted to be a journalist. I think I was watching a lot of Gilmore Girls. I loved Walter Cronkite. I did, in high school, I did a stint. It was like their summer sort of like internship experience where I got to be at ASU during the summer. So there's no one else there for 2 weeks and go to the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism. And I originally went for writing. And then when I got there to check in, they told me that they're like, oh, you're booked for both, but you can't do both. You have to choose whether you want to broadcast or writing. And sort of on the spot, I was like, I'll do broadcast. And so I'm so glad I did, because not only did that open me up to a lot of the friends that I have now, but it put me, when you're on camera, it's a very different experience than when you're just like,
go on. It's
yeah,
like it changes. It's like, oh wow, this is different.
Oh, absolutely. And then of course, like everything, obviously you're hearing everything in real time, and you're talking to people, and it really puts you on the spot to keep conversations going. And And I think with writing, there is a comfort there where you can type something and be like, nah, and then go back. And so, you have a little bit more flexibility of like how you really craft that story. So which is why I still very much like writing to this day. But so that really helped me like to broaden out and also helped me in high school. I got involved in our internal school like broadcast station. And so I did a lot of,
like the morning announcement team.
Yeah. It doesn't have the biggest budget.
No, it's a start.
So you really just have a green screen and then that's pretty much it. But I learned some really valuable lessons in that. I actually had a really great teacher, Jeff Chandler. And to this day, someone I keep in touch with on social and so forth. And he's always such a good advocate and cheerleader. Every time I'm doing something, he's like, I know you could do it since I saw you. And
what high school did you go to?
I went to Skyline, so in Mesa. Okay. So I was born in Phoenix, and then I probably not the not the best part of Phoenix, and so that definitely, I guess, like humble beginnings. It was in an area that I think is still growing as well, South Phoenix. At that time though, I shared a bedroom with two of my sisters, and we would share a bed. And, it was a neighborhood that was, highly influenced with gangs and, drugs and, drive-by shootings and stuff. And so obviously growing up, that was all I knew. And my parents obviously wanted a better life for us. So they worked really hard. My dad would go to school at night, and my mom, because I'm first generation, my dad's from Mexico, and he would go to school at night, work during the day. My mom would work during the day, be with us at night. And we just had sort of the system where, it was the three sisters before my fourth one came, and my mom. And, at that time, of course, you're not seeing your parents work hard and make sacrifices. And then they moved us to Mesa, which at that time, zero happening there, like nothing. And I remember we would make these trips, which at that time, as a kid, you're thinking, oh, it's so far. Like we would stop at the gas station. I'm thinking, this is the halfway point. Really, it's like a 40-minute drive, 30-minute drive.
For you, it felt like forever.
It felt like forever. And we would make an adventure of it and got to see our house being built. And that was exciting because, like I said, growing up where we were, this house was pretty run down. We shared a room, we shared a bed. We didn't... all the clothes were handed down, toys weren't, necessarily like from Target or, name brands. And so this was kind of our first experience having something brand new. And that was really exciting. And so I grew up in Mesa, and I loved it. It was kind of an awakening in some way because, in Phoenix, I was surrounded by other people who looked like me, or other people who at least probably had more of a diverse background, whether that was like single family households, whether it was someone who was, Mexican, someone of Native descent, there was more diversity where I was at. And so when I moved to Mesa, I was around a lot of girls who were like blonde hair, blue eyes, and I felt different.
So you leave Arizona, because you wanted to, what I hear you say is like, I want to make a mark, right? And so I had to make a mark a little bit outside of hometown and family life and all of that, right? So you do that and, have the experience in LA, go to Seattle, continue to build your career. Then what made you decide to come back and draw you back to Arizona? And what did you do when you got back here?
In the most transparent, answer, life happened.
Yeah.
I got a divorce, and I think that kind of kickstarted sort of this next phase of life. I spent my 20s trying to get away and do things on my own and to be my own person. And then, at a time where I was like, oh, I'm about to welcome this, person into the world that I am carrying. And then life hits you with another sort of roadblock of a separation or a divorce. And I began to realize I need a community around me, and that being my family. when you think about it, it came from a place of just of hurt and sadness and not quite sure.
Sometimes coming home is like the best thing you can do when you have that.
Yeah.
And you built that opportunity. You made your mark, but sometimes it's like, now I'm going to return to my roots and continue to grow. So how have you been growing as you've been back in Arizona?
The growing pains, especially in the beginning, were incredibly hard. I felt like I made sacrifices to my career, which probably the aspect of myself as an individual that I valued a lot was my work ethic, that I always found opportunities, that I always created opportunities. And it got to a point where I just found kind of like a standstill. I needed that standstill, and I welcomed it. I had to learn this from a lot of people telling me this, because I'm the type of person to be like, I need to know how this ends. Like, I need to know like what's after this. And everyone would tell me just kind of like, well, you need to embrace the journey. This is it. It's what you make of it. What defines you is how you come out of it. And so, in all the most cliche ways possible, like I was reading books, I was listening to podcasts, I, was going to therapy, I was talking to friends who probably went through the same thing. And I kind of just was taking all of these different perspectives, learning about myself to help myself get there. And like when you're in the thick of it, you don't really know it.
It's hard to see.
It's hard to see. Thankfully, I'm at a point now when I look back at that, I'm like, oh gosh, life is so different, but like it's good. Like it's a good different. This new phase of life, this new chapter, this new transition, this new like my 30s as how I'm sort of seeing it. I'm leading into my best decade, and that's exciting.
So let's take that to now present day in terms of your career. Like talk to us about what you're doing here at Ideas Collide.
Yeah, I started as just more of like a general account manager. Again, as a person who seeks opportunity, I noticed, I was like, I see a couple of just holes here. And I remember very clearly, and now when I look back, I'm like, wow, how bold of Vicki. I put a presentation together, and I just was like, I'm going to just show this to Matt. And I had only been here for 2 months at that time, but I remember asking for your time and presenting that, and
it was your growth plan. It was like a growth plan outline. Like you took the first 60 days, kind of analyzed where you were.
Yeah,
is how I interpreted it. And 60 days in, you're like, hey, I'm gonna show you my vision, and you put that forward. I mean, that's exactly what our growth plans are intended to do: is put your vision forward of where you want to continue to go, and then bring that to life.
I'm in definitely this new wave of seizing opportunities, but also reclaiming the professional, the worker, the passionate individual that I know myself to be. And I really love this agency. Like I when I talk to individuals within the agency, or even with people who I formerly worked with, or even at Best Western, when they like are checking in on me, asking how things are going, I'm like, I'm so happy. And I really am. I haven't felt a connection to an organization that I, obviously was investing in a really long time.
Yeah. So to recap that role, you're going to be, as you mentioned, you're going to be doing still some, what we call our, influence or bridge accounts. You're still working on our Build Your Future account, really important to our business development and our growing account side. So you're going to play still the account lead and manager role there, while also building these new opportunities within business development around our content marketing, really actualizing social further for us. If you're looking at our blogs, they're really a lot more content's coming from us, which has been a really key initiative in our business plan, is to get that back into full positioning and content mode. And so you've done an amazing job there, and building the brand opportunities with the business development team, right, and others, kind of growing and excelling at that. And then the last component of all of that is the diversity, equity, inclusion, and you're going to be taking a lead role there as well. So maybe as we close out, tell us a little bit more about what you're going to be doing in diversity, equity, inclusion.
As an agency, as a team, we already had a really good foundation. And we obviously had done a lot of legwork to get to the point where we are now. And For me, thinking of where to take it next really was to begin to strategically think, like, how are we continuing that conversation? Are we pushing out enough, resources and content to the team and even externally to communities and clients? So kind of thinking that, strategically thinking of what does our footprint look like? And that way from there, we can continue to build and advance our next steps. And so a large portion of that, of what that looks like, is working more closely with Nicole, with our hiring and, new talent attraction and retention. And that way people know, oh, great. Like, I know exactly how this agency is aligning with my goals and the values that I have, how to map that into social and to our thought leadership. Not only so much of like, hey, look what we're doing, but also really elevating those kind of stories and the impact that's happening, whether it's directly from us, in volunteer efforts and events, or it's in partnership with, community members that we have, with clients, what are they doing? Really giving everyone the opportunity to feel heard, to feel seen, to feel like they get to contribute however they would like.
So how would the team, if they want to reach out and be involved, how can they get involved?
I'm working very closely as well, with Erica and Lara. More than welcome to reach out to me, reach out to them to continue that conversation and make it a part of the daily aspect of the agency, that you always know it's there.
Awesome. So we look forward to that. I think we're going to have more future, what we call little updates on DE&I from you and from your team, as we have more and more podcasts. So I look forward for those updates and ongoing. I know we've got a few things being planned for a celebration around DE&I, so we look forward to sharing that with the team as well. So thanks, Vicki. Awesome to get to know a little bit more about you, learn about your background. I loved hearing about your family life and those dreams and how your parents made those sacrifices and where you are today to continue to fulfill that for them. I think that's a beautiful story and one we are excited to see you to continue to write and grow from. So love having you here and excited to see you continue your journey here at Ideas Collide.
Thank you.
We'll talk soon.
Yeah, thanks.
All right.